năm 2013 là năm thứ 6 Việt Nam rơi vào trì trệ, tăng trưởng dưới tiềm năng. Đây cũng là giai đoạn bất ổn kinh tế vĩ mô kéo dài nhất tính từ đầu thập niên 1990 đến nay. Từ sự đánh giá tổng quan kinh tế Việt Nam năm 2013 có thể thấy, năm 2014, nền kinh tế vẫn chưa thể ra khỏi giai đoạn trì trệ. Những khó khăn đặt ra trong năm 2013 vẫn sẽ tiếp tục kéo dài trong năm 2014. Tính trong năm 2013, số doanh nghiệp gặp khó khăn phải giải thể hoặc ngừng hoạt động là 60.737 doanh nghiệp, tăng 11,9% so với năm liền trước. Không chỉ thế, Việt Nam đang trong quá trình hội nhập, sức cạnh tranh ngày càng gay gắt hơn khi các doanh nghiệp Việt Nam phải cạnh tranh với các doanh nghiệp nước ngoài, không chỉ trên trường quốc tế mà còn trên chính sân nhà của mình. Có thể thấy, môi trường kinh doanh tại Việt Nam hiện nay khắc nghiệt như thế nào. Các doanh nghiệp thời hiện đại có thể tồn tại và phát triển cần phải có một bước đi đúng đắn. Theo đó, vai trò của một nhà lãnh đạo công ty cũng trở nên vô cùng quan trọng. Người ta mong đợi rất nhiều ở người lãnh đạo.
Đầu tiên tôi nghĩ CEO tại Việt Nam có một vai trò hết sức quan trọng bởi rất nhiều doanh nghiệp Việt Nam đang dần phát triển ra nước ngoài, ra ASEAN, ra toàn thế giới. Chính vì thế, họ phải hướng nhân viên của mình mở mang đầu óc và tiếp nhận sự cạnh tranh từ toàn cầu. Thứ hai nữa là họ phải quản lý mọi thứ từ cách thức kinh doanh đến hệ thống nhân viên, bởi Việt Nam là một quốc gia nhiều tiềm năng và sẽ thu hút sự chú ý và đầu tư từ nước ngoài.
Một nhà lãnh đạo doanh nghiệp được kỳ vọng là người có tài xoay sở và làm việc độc lập. Khi công việc không thuận lợi, nhà lãnh đạo đó phải gánh lấy trách nhiệm. Và khi thành công thì các thành viên trong nhóm phải được khen thưởng. Quả thực, trong giai đoạn nền kinh tế bất ổn như hiện nay, các giám đốc, các nhà quản lý có thể kinh ngạc trước sự thay đổi vận mệnh nhanh chóng của công ty. Công ty có thể rơi vào tình trạng khó khăn, bất chấp việc ban giám đốc không có bất kỳ sai lầm nào trong quản lý, điều hành. Chú ý một cách cẩn trọng vào tình trạng kinh doanh tổng thể của công ty là trọng tâm trách nhiệm của một giám đốc, một nhà quản lý. Trong quá trình thích ứng với những điều kiện kinh tế đang thay đổi, nhà quản lý nên đánh giá khả năng chống chịu của mô hình kinh doanh mà công ty đang có và linh hoạt xử lý tình huống để đưa công ty thoát khỏi khó khăn. Tuy nhiên, để thực hiện nhiệm vụ này cũng hết sức khó khăn.
Trong nền kinh tế khó khăn hiện nay thì họ lãnh đạo là phải định hướng cho doanh nghiệp trong quá trình phát triển. Định hướng ấy nó bao gồm nhiều kỹ năng lôi cuốn cán bộ công nhân viên, kỹ năng tìm hiểu thị trường, kỹ năng về quản lý về tài chính. Nhưng mà đặc biệt trong giai đoạn khó khăn tôi nhấn mạnh ở đấy là cái khả năng về tìm kiếm thị trường, hiểu biết khách hàng, duy trì những cái kênh phân phối tốt để đưa hàng hóa, sản phẩm dịch vụ của mình đến với khách hàng.
Thực tế, để ý tưởng triển khai và thực tiễn mang lại kết quả tốt, để có một quyết định đúng đắn, đòi hỏi người lãnh đạo phải có một cảm quan tốt, đánh giá và dự báo được tình hình, cân nhắc được lợi hại các quyết định và hiểu sâu sắc việc mình làm.
Vâng, một tuần đã trôi qua và chúng ta lại gặp nhau tại diễn đàn CEO trên kênh truyền hình VTV. Tôi là Hoa Lê. Thưa quý vị, trong bối cảnh nền kinh tế nhiều thay đổi như hiện nay, với sự phát triển mạnh của các quốc gia mới nổi, công nghệ số và yêu cầu phát triển bền vững v.v., các nhà lãnh đạo cần nhanh chóng làm chủ các kỹ năng để đối mặt với các thách thức lớn của tổ chức. Ở Việt Nam hiện nay thì yêu cầu đặt ra đối với các nhà lãnh đạo mà cụ thể là lãnh đạo doanh nghiệp là gì? Họ cần những kỹ năng gì để dẫn dắt doanh nghiệp tại một quốc gia đang phát triển và không ngừng hội nhập? Đến với chủ đề này, chúng tôi hân hạnh mời đến trường quay một khách mời đặc biệt. Nói là đặc biệt bởi vì ông không phải là một CEO, nhưng lại là người thầy của rất nhiều CEO trên thế giới. Xin giới thiệu với quý vị, giáo sư Charles Henry Bexey-de-Jos. Ông là giảng viên môn quản trị nhân lực và hành vi tổ chức tại trường kinh doanh HEC Paris, một trường quốc tế danh tiếng của châu Âu và thế giới có trụ sở tại Pháp. Nhân dịp ông quay trở lại Việt Nam tham gia giảng dạy tại chương trình thạc sĩ quản trị kinh doanh MBA của Trung tâm Pháp Việt đào tạo về quản lý CFPG. So I have to introduce you to our audiences.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for having your time here in our program.
It's really a big pleasure to be here with you and to be in Vietnam.
So I know that you have been here in Vietnam for several times.
Yes,
So,
21 years to be specific. The first time I came to Hanoi was in 1993 when it was the first intake of the CFVG program.
Yeah. So what are your remarks on our economy is changing in such a long time?
As you know, I'm traveling quite a lot around the world, and I've been to many countries, and Vietnam is one of the best example of what I call a booming country. What I remember from the 1993 experience, that was the first time in this country, and today it's really a very different country. Just look at the road, look at this number of high buildings you have, especially in Hanoi, you know, and it's really interesting to see this booming economic life, I feel, you know, and especially in the more recent years, because I've been in your country since about 5 years, if I recall, every year, so I see a change, you know, every year, and especially with the participants we have at the CFVG program.
What about the people you have worked with when you were in Vietnam?
Clearly, first, they don't speak French anymore. That's my disappointment. You know, only people with gray hair like me are speaking a bit of French still today. But clearly, the young people, they're all very open to the English-speaking countries, especially because in your region here, it's all the countries around you are speaking English, so that's an important change, you know. But I think you kept some of these, some aspects, good aspects of the French culture. You know, there is some flavor here, I feel, you know, especially some buildings. But clearly we have here a country where you have a lot of, I would say, entrepreneurial people, you know, and also, you know, since I came in 1993, there was this big revolution of internet. And clearly what we have in Vietnam today is exactly what we see in many other countries. Are all these young people, you know, they all have their iPad, iPod, iPhone, and Samsung, you know, to name it. So everybody's connected, you know. And when I'm going to even to the old walk through the streets of old Hanoi, and I see all these young people in cafe, cyber cafe, you know, they're all connected.
It's quite a long time since our đổi mới, and and it's one of the advantages. You say the mobile phones, iPods, iPads, right? It is one of the advantages that the đổi mới brings to us.
I think, you know, what you did, if I recall, it was in 1986, if I am correct.
Right.
You know, clearly in the past, let's say 25 years, there has been a huge change, you know, opening of the economy, which is also a pressure, especially for the traditional companies you have here, because they have more competition, you know, from foreign firms. You know, that's one issue, and even for people. Because when you see what the young Vietnamese, but I would say the same thing when I go to Lebanon, for instance, I go very often to Lebanon, I have exactly the same feeling in this country. The young people are often more attracted by so-called foreign firms or foreign, you know, based firms, because they think they are more modern, they are more open, and so on. So you have a challenge, you know. When you open the country, when you have all these new, you know, ideas that come, and internet is a strong. I think the digital revolution brings a lot of new ideas.
So it says that the integration brings us both advantage and challenges.
Yeah, and challenges. Yeah, especially for the people who have been used to the old way of management. You know, the old way of managing, and clearly we, you know, when you open the, you know, the economy, clearly some of the people are very challenged, especially by the young generation. I would say that, but the same thing we have in Europe and especially in France. Old style management is questioned by all this young generation. You know, what we call now the Gen Y people, Generation Y people. You know, which is not at all my case. I am myself a baby boomer. You know, and so the baby boomers were born up to 1965 or 4, if I recall. So the people we were born during the 50s, like me, and the 60s. You know. They don't always understand the young generation, and we have exactly the same situation here. Because in Vietnam, as you know, I have the feeling that the your culture is also based on what we call seniority. You know, the more senior people are high position. And what happened today in the world, especially because or thanks to internet, may question the way they are managing. You see?
Yeah. So say that's the key. The key one is the management.
In any situation of change, I think if the manager and the leaders do not change themselves, it's very difficult to ask companies, organizations to change. You know, change is always an issue. Change, because when you change in a company, you don't know where exactly you are going. You know what you are losing. You know what you are leaving, but you don't know where you are going. Yeah. And the problem is if the people on the top, I'm talking about the senior management, and leaders are not changing, it's really an issue, because why do they expect the people below them to change? You know, when they don't change. So I think the first people to change should be the leaders, the managers.
Yeah. A more close approach. We talk about the one who you work with. For example, the CEOs. Who you have lectured them in for your time here in Vietnam. So what do you remark on the CEO's characters?
As I say, you know, the people who come to these programs often are, I would say, rather open-minded, because they accept, for instance, to be in a class, you know, to sit in a class with other people. It's first important decision, because you are going back to a student position. You have a professor in front of you, like me, and you have, even if you are the CEO. So, you know, I would say one of the characteristics I see of these people I've met, they are entrepreneurial, yes, they are all, you know, very proactive. And one other characteristic I see, especially for the people who attend this class and so on, they have what I call humility, or they are more humble. You know, you understand what I mean? That means they are not arrogant, because they are with us to learn. You know, and I think humility is one of the great leadership quality people should have. It's not because you are at the top of a company that you have to be arrogant. You know, it's because it's clearly you are at the top of a company as a CEO because you have demonstrated a number of achievements, I would say, successes, but you can always learn, and the people who come to these management programs, they want to learn more and to be even more efficient, you know, in their leadership style.
So in a changing world, in a changing economy like in Vietnam, you say that what are the CEOs supposed to be? I mean, the competencies or the qualities that they are supposed to have.
You know, we often say that one of the first quality leaders should have is what I call vision, or, you know, of purpose. To see where and to say where the company or the organization should be going. So the leader should have a vision, and this vision then should be kind of shared with everyone in the company. So, you know, some sort of appropriation. Another quality, as I say, is humility. I say what I would call empathy. Empathy, to understand the other people. It's not because you are at the top of the organization that the people below are not. You should hear what they have to say, you know. And there is if I may take an example, there is a wonderful example in a big emerging country like India. The example is this person called Vinit Nair. He is the CEO of HCL Technologies, which is a big IT company. And when he took the leadership of that company as a CEO, he said the first thing to do is to invert what he called the pyramid, to put, you know. And what he did, and it's a true story, and right now it's one of the most successful companies in India in the IT sector. He just said the most important people are the people in the value zone, what he called the people in the value zone. And the people in the value zone are low-level employees who are in contact with clients. So everyone in the company, including the CEO, the people are at the service of these people. So you see, it's kind of very interesting situation where the most important people are the people who are not on the top. They are in the middle and even below, because they are in contact with clients.
Yeah.
And the most important issue is to have new clients and to keep clients. So you see?
So we call it a kind of counter pyramid model.
Yeah, it's a counter or inverted pyramid concept. So this is an example. Again, I'm not saying that every company should invert the pyramid. That would be stupid to say everyone should do the same thing. But for Vietnamese leaders, it could be an interesting idea to look at how their companies are organized, structure. And one thing you have in Vietnam, I think it's in your culture, like in French culture, because we are on this point we are very similar, is hierarchical dimension. You are very hierarchical culture, historically, like France, And by the way, there have been studies on comparing countries, and on this dimension of hierarchy, we are very close, France and Vietnam. So the problem with hierarchical culture is clearly it's difficult to invert the pyramid. You see, so leaders here, especially with all the changes we already mentioned, have to learn how to be more, I would say, open, humble, and another quality obviously is to get really the people, I would say, on board. That means to motivate, to be able, and even there is a stronger concept now beyond motivation. It's called engagement, people engagement. So to get employees engaged is also a very important characteristic, and so the leaders should be able to engage people and to give even more power to the. But again, for people here, and we have a similar also situation in France. Sometimes when you give power, people don't accept power because they are not used to be. To have power, because usually they listen to the other from the top.
So how to motivate them?
I think education, exemplarity. I think one thing I forget when you ask me a question about the leadership. I think to have exemplarity, to show that what you are, that it's important what you are saying. And so trust also. To trust people. Because if you don't trust people, don't expect them to behave, as adult. I would say, I often use a concept. It's a concept used in a theory called transactional analysis, and there is a relationship between people. You have adults, children, adults, and I would say many companies, including in France, but I guess in Vietnamese companies, you have the same situation where often the boss is an adult and the employees are the children, you see, so they talk. And I would say the new leaders, the new leadership qualities is to balance more the relationship between more adults and adults, so taking the people, even the low-level employees as adults. And by the way, it's linked to another quality I could name, it's courage. I think you have to tell sometimes to people that they are not good.
Yeah.
And they should improve, or maybe at the extreme, you have to tell them that they don't fit anymore with the company, and that's courage. Because in many situations, and I guess Vietnam is a bit like that. In Vietnam you are also a collective culture. So what I call a collective culture, with a lot of the group is important, the family is important. So it's very difficult to say to someone of the family that he or she is not good. So again, I would say the leaders in this country, like many other countries, they will have to be more transparent, courageous, saying to some people that they don't fit. And that's difficult to say sometimes in some cultures, because some cultures say, "Oh, we want everybody happy," You understand the word?
I think it's easy for CEOs to say so to their employees.
Yeah.
I don't think that it's difficult for them.
Oh, okay. So you, maybe I'm not. I cannot pretend that I know perfectly what is happening, but I have the feeling that. I would say, in other words, I would say differentiating people maybe more difficult in collective cultures. You understand what I mean? Making difference between people is more difficult because usually in a collective culture, people are all the same. You know, it's a member of the family. So that's why maybe it's better word differentiating people.
To be more focused on individuals.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And saying to someone you did a very good job, so reward, and someone else you are not very good, either you improve or you leave, you know.
You're right.
You see, and that's sometimes more difficult. The Anglo-Saxon cultures, the US, are more used, to this kind of thing. But I could say that we had exactly the same situation in Latin cultures. In France, for instance, we have lots of difficulties to be courageous. We prefer to say to everyone, "Oh, you are good," because we don't have any problem when we say that to. It's more difficult to say to someone, you did a very good job, and the other one, your job is not so good. You should improve, and even we have to separate.
Maybe your perception about our collective culture is right.
But I would say we were talking about the changes of Vietnam. I would say one of the big changes is obviously the arrival on the job market of them in companies of this young generation, of Gen Y people who have been born and raised with internet and so on. I'm pretty sure this young generation will expect more and more individual recognition. But there is a limit of that. Because if you have too much focus on individuals, you should not forget the collective. Because the good news with the strength of Vietnamese culture, like collective, is you have a solidarity effect, and it would be I would say very negative if you kill the collective part. You see, so it's kind of balance between individual focus and the collective thing.
Okay. Talking about the individuals, I think it must take a long time for Vietnamese people to to change from we to I.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I do not think that change in any case happens over time, except when you have a very big crisis, obviously, and clearly when you have huge crisis, people can change quickly. But on the average, people change slowly, and especially when you talk about change of mentality, managers' mentality, it takes time, it takes education. What we do at the CFVG here in the MBA program and the other program, executive program, is to have people also change the mindset. You see, so that it takes time. It's not because you have let's say a 3 days leadership program, like we have in that you change the people in 3 days, but you put them some new ideas, and hopefully it will develop, and change you see. So you're right. It doesn't happen overnight, I would say, but it takes, and it will come. And all these forces we have discussed, including the technology, the people, the young people, they will have, some impact on the changes.
So, in short, if we talk to the CEOs attending to your lectures, you must have a vision. You should have the kind of humility, and you should be able to motivate people. That's all.
And also the last thing I said, monitoring or monitoring the people, giving them reward, and sometimes saying that being courageous. I think courage is important.
Okay.
Okay.
Làm lãnh đạo có thể hiểu theo nhiều khía cạnh. Đó có thể là những nhà lãnh đạo trong lĩnh vực chính trị, lao động, luật pháp, giáo dục, báo chí, tôn giáo. Cũng có thể là lãnh đạo doanh nghiệp hay các doanh nhân. Nhiệm vụ của lãnh đạo có thể rất đa dạng. Từ các vấn đề cộng đồng đến các quyết định mang tính quốc gia hay các vấn đề toàn cầu, đến một ngành công nghiệp đa quốc gia hay một ngành nghề, hoặc cũng có thể là một lát cắt hẹp nhưng lại sâu sắc hơn của cuộc sống và công việc. Một công ty đơn lẻ, một chi nhánh địa phương hay một khu dân cư. Tạp chí Forbes cho rằng nếu bạn cho mình là một nhà lãnh đạo tiềm năng nhưng chưa được mọi người nhận ra, thì chắc chắn bạn đang có một vấn đề nào đó. Có thể là bạn chưa đánh giá đúng bản thân hoặc cấp trên của bạn chưa nhận ra tài năng ở bạn. Nhưng việc học làm lãnh đạo lại dễ dàng hơn nhiều so với những gì mà hầu hết chúng ta luôn nghĩ. Bởi vì mỗi chúng ta đều sở hữu một khả năng lãnh đạo bẩm sinh. Điều cần làm ở đây là khai phá khả năng đó. Và trong bối cảnh nền kinh tế đang gặp nhiều khó khăn, phải chèo lái doanh nghiệp ra sao, quản lý nhân lực như thế nào là những câu hỏi mà các CEO có thể trả lời được thông qua việc học tập. Học tập tại các khóa học lãnh đạo, học để trau dồi năng lực trong thực tiễn. Đến với một cuộc hội thảo của CFPG, chương trình hợp tác đào tạo quốc tế do Phòng Thương mại và Công nghiệp Paris Paris thực hiện tại Trường Đại học Việt Nam, chúng ta có thể tìm hiểu và nắm được những xu hướng đào tạo lãnh đạo của quốc tế hiện nay và học hỏi được những kinh nghiệm quản lý từ thế hệ đi trước.
Để làm lãnh đạo thì có nhiều kỹ năng. Với cái thời điểm hiện tại thì theo tôi thì kỹ năng quan trọng nhất là kỹ năng phân tích và xử lý tình huống. Và ngoài ra thì phải có kỹ năng nghe, tức là kỹ năng những khi có rất nhiều ý tưởng mà xuất phát từ những nhân viên cấp dưới. Thế bản thân người lãnh đạo thì không thể nào mà là người cái gì cũng biết, tất cả mọi vấn đề đều giỏi. Cho nên là phải nghe được cấp dưới và quyết định là có nhiều quyết định đưa ra là có thể dựa trên những ý kiến mà từ cấp dưới đưa lên.
Cách đây 20 năm, khi kinh tế Việt Nam bắt đầu phát triển, thì lớp thanh niên ngày đó đã nhận thức sâu sắc được vai trò của người quản lý. Và khi nền kinh tế không ngừng biến động, họ lại tìm cách trau dồi kiến thức bản thân để trở thành những nhà lãnh đạo tài ba của ngày hôm nay. Ông Bùi Chí Hùng, quản lý bán hàng cấp cao tại Oracle Việt Nam, là một trong những người đó.
Chúng tôi đã xuất phát từ dân làm về IT, về kỹ thuật, thế thì có rất nhiều kỹ năng quản lý. Nên nếu mà trong cái môi trường kinh doanh thì thiếu cái kỹ năng quản lý thì là làm cho mình cũng rất khó khăn trong công việc. Và nếu mà mình bổ sung thêm kỹ năng này thì mình như kiểu một người đi được hai chân thì nó sẽ là tốt hơn. CFPG thì là cũng qua nhiều nguồn tin, chủ yếu là bạn bè rồi internet rồi là một trong những cái đơn vị mà có chất lượng đào tạo tốt nhất. Mặc dù là có thể là theo học lớp CFPG thì cũng hơi nặng nề, hơi tốn nhiều thời gian và công sức, nhưng mà cũng nói chung là theo tôi thì ở Việt Nam thì chắc là đơn vị có cái chất lượng đào tạo quản lý số 1 ở Việt Nam.
Ông Lê Hải Sơn, kế toán trưởng kiêm ủy viên Hội đồng Quản trị Công ty Cổ phần Xà phòng Hà Nội, từng theo học một khóa học quản lý và đã đạt được nhiều thành công trong vai trò lãnh đạo của mình.
Thì tôi hiện tại đang làm kế toán trưởng và đồng thời là ủy viên hội đồng quản trị. Thì trong các cái chức năng nhiệm vụ của mình, tôi thường xuyên phải có những cái tham gia với ban lãnh đạo công ty về việc kế hoạch phát triển sản phẩm, rồi định hướng cho công ty. Chính vì vậy nên tôi trong quá trình làm việc ấy tôi cảm thấy mình là thiếu những cái kỹ năng. Chính vậy tôi chọn CFPG, rồi qua quá trình học tập ở đây thì những kiến thức mà các thầy giáo và các bạn bè của tôi chia sẻ với tôi thì đã giúp cho tôi là có những cái tư vấn cho ban lãnh đạo công ty về cái định hướng sản phẩm rất thiết thực.
Không có một công thức cụ thể nào để giúp một ai đó trở thành lãnh đạo, và không phải ai cũng có thể trở thành lãnh đạo. Tuy nhiên, được đào tạo bài bản và học hỏi kinh nghiệm sẽ giúp những nhà lãnh đạo tương lai vững bước và tự tin hơn để phát triển sự nghiệp và phát triển kinh tế đất nước.
I know that your specialty is human resource
Yes.
management. Okay.
Yes.
So it is also said that in a company, the core value is human resource. So with your perspective or perception about this, tell us more.
Okay, so I'm going to be very frank. Okay, lots of companies are claiming that the most important capital is human capital, right? But when I see the reality, and I'm talking about European context, I'm not talking about Vietnamese here, I do see that it's not true. In practice, you know, in the official communication, corporate communication, you have the human capital is the most important one. But when you look at how companies are really managing the human capital, I don't think it's still the case. So human resource is as a field, I would say, is obviously a complex field. You know, because companies are not always really investing in their human resources. Yeah, they claim to invest, but they don't do it. And especially when you look at the role of what it's called in many companies, the HR function, the human resource function, the position and the image, the image of this function is not always very good as compared to finance. If you take the finance function, the marketing people function, it's much stronger, you see. So we have still a lot of conviction, a lot of word to express for the human resource, role and responsibility. So I'm not negative. I'm just saying we have really to convince companies that the human capital is the most important one, and for a simple reason. The other forms of capital, you can buy the other capital, technical, finance, and so on. You can, you can copy. Exactly. The only capital you cannot copy is yourself. Yourself as here in this interview, you are unique. And I will have another interviewer. It will be very different. So including myself, when I am doing a lecture, I could have exactly the same content, that means the same slides and say, but my person is different from the next professor. Again, I am convinced, and that's why I'm trying to communicate in the lecture, in the courses all around the world. Human resource is not only an administrative function, because lots of people are seeing HR as pure administrative function. Yes, there is administration of people, but much more than administration, I do think it's a really value-creating function, where you can get a lot of differentiation through the people. If you have the best managers, if you have the best employees, and people, as we say, are motivated, engaged, you get a result that is incredibly different from other companies. Okay. And this lesson can apply for Vietnamese companies. It's not linked. It's not linked to a culture. It's a basic human vision. I mean, it's just saying that the people should be developed, should be respected, should be heard. And everybody at all levels of organization can say something and can have a new idea to do things better, and at the end of the day, to serve better the customers. You see, I mean, it's something that is applicable in every part of the world. I don't see there is no relationship with culture. Listening to the people is not, you see. So on this issue of human resource, I think obviously we have to make companies and the leaders, the CEOs, more aware of what they can gain from this human resource decisions.
So as you say, the best employers has the best employees.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, the best employee get the best customers. The customers are more loyal. They bring you more money. It's a virtuous circle. You see.
So talking about the Vietnamese companies, yes, in our economy today, human resource management is more and more paid attention to. So people also say that Vietnamese have abundant and cheap labor force. What do you think?
It's true that this country has still an image of cheap labor force, mass production. The companies, foreign companies, are developing business, investing in this country to develop, mass production. I would say, to some extent, that's the reality today. But what will be the reality tomorrow? And I would say this country, like many other countries, you have more and more highly educated workforce. Yeah. The foreign firms will realize that the cheap labor concept is obsolete. They will have more difficulties to pay the people low income. And they will have to find ways to first to pay the people higher level, mm-hmm. and to get maybe higher prices. Even for me as a Western customer, do I accept to pay a shirt like 10 euros or 15 euros? You see, If I accept to pay 15 euros, that means the people working here or working in other parts of the world at low cost will be paying more. So it's a question of also responsibility of the customers in developed countries. And you know, there is a trend today in Europe and in other parts of the world where the customers are more and more aware of cheap labor, and they would accept to pay a bit more the products just to avoid this low-cost cheap labor situation. So going back to your question, I would say that the evolution of the country, you know, will necessarily be more and more educated people, and even the country itself, instead of being just a producer for foreign firms, will become a producer for it and develop its own products. Like if you look at the case of China, for instance, where before it was just a mass production country, and today they are developing lots of new products themselves. You know, so again, you have exactly the same situation also in India. If you go, for instance, to Bangalore area, you know, when I go to Bangalore, I feel that I am in the Silicon Valley, the same thing, and I am in India. So the only difference is maybe sometimes when you get out of Bangalore, the roads are not so good, you know. But I mean, the country itself is moving up, you know. So again. The same thing with Vietnam. When you look, obviously there are places in Vietnam that are very remote, very far from the development of Ho Chi Minh City or Hanoi or any other big city. But I would say just the strategy of the cheap labor force, I mean, will come to an end in the future, and certainly some of the production will go back to the developed countries. But then it's a challenge for Vietnam to develop its own product, its own you know, high quality products, and to develop its own brands, I would say.
Yeah. So you say it's an advantage for Vietnam to have a cheap and abundant labor force, but it is a kind of a certain period of time, and in the future we have to change
I would say, you know, I see a trend where even some places where it was so-called cheap labor are no longer cheap labor, you know, and also because, you know, there is a higher conscious of, as I say, of foreign customers, of Western customers especially. They don't want to buy products from companies that just using, you know, the cheap labor. If you remember the very sad story last year with the Bangladesh, you know, and you have some brands like Gap and I don't recall the names, but some clothes brand that have been hurt because we have seen that they were not respecting the basic labor conditions. You see, so. Companies have to be very careful now.
Because what you say is the customer's responsibility.
Yeah, it's and there is an issue linked to the digital revolution, which is reputation. You know, if you have a reputation of just paying the people the minimum wage and just making a lot of profits because you went to a cheap labor and you sell a rather high price, it will, you know, and you have an accident like we had in Bangladesh, it can be very bad for the company. You know, I think it was like 10 or 15 years ago, there was this story with Nike, you know, where there was this issue of child labor, you know, and the company has been hurt a lot. So again, the same story happened, and you know, we are now in a very open economy, very transparent. Everybody says everything on, you know, you can click on internet and you know a lot of information. So companies have to be careful, you see. And regarding, as you say, the development, it may be today for Vietnam a cost advantage to have, but I would say that obviously with the growing educated population of Vietnam, I mean, it won't be the case, you know. Let's meet in 50 years and maybe we see a different situation.
What you say is that it's the CEOs, leaders of companies who will change the situation of Vietnam from a mass-producing country with abundant and cheap labor force to a country with more of its own products. how will you say to them to change the situation?
The development of the country human capital. Here I'm talking about the development of the human capital through education. The level of I think investing in education is a critical issue for the country, but this country, but all the countries. And then the management style. As I say, I believe that through the human capital you can get a lot of new ideas, incredible ideas. Why do you think the US especially have been very strong in innovative ideas? Because they had a very strong education system. But the French also are not so bad, but we are less entrepreneurial, so that's the problem we have. We have, for instance, I think in France among the best engineering schools in the world. Very good engineers are educated.
Yes.
Everyone knows. But the problem is we have very good ideas, but we are not able to market these ideas. So very often the engineers are going elsewhere. They are going to US. They are going to UK. They are going to other countries where they can develop their ideas. Because as I say, we are like, I feel like Vietnam, a very hierarchical culture. So when you have a nice idea, the boss not always listen to you, you see. So what they prefer to go to a place where they listen. So another way to develop, because you asked me advice to the CEOs, is obviously to listen more, to be more humble, as you say, as I said earlier, you see. And not to think that I am the boss, I know everything. No, you don't know everything, because now the young people are more educated on internet than you. And even there is a trend in some companies, we call it reverse mentoring. Reverse mentoring is the fact that the young people are educating the more senior people like me on how to use Facebook, how to use Twitter, how to use a number of tools we are not used to. But these kids, they are every day on Twitter, they are every day on Facebook, and so on.
Okay, thank you for your sharing today in our program, and once again, I hope that you will see you sometime in our program in the future.
It was a pleasure to be with you and to try to answer some questions. Not always easy, because it's not because I've been here a number of times that I really know in depth the Vietnamese culture, but we are sensitive to some issues, some clues, especially when we compare the culture here with other countries, and I have a large international experience, so I can always compare, and also to be a bit empathic, to understand the other people. Okay?
Thank you for your willingness to be here once again in the future someday.
Thank you.
Vâng, thưa quý vị, có vị CEO tham gia chương trình của chúng tôi đã từng nói rằng chúng ta có thể không có các nhà khoa học giỏi, không có các nghệ sĩ giỏi, bởi vì chúng ta có thể mời họ về làm việc và cống hiến, biểu diễn trong nước, và khi đó thì chúng ta vẫn ngang hàng với những người tiêu dùng trên thế giới. Nhưng nếu chúng ta chỉ là khán giả của các CEO nước ngoài, xem họ hoạt động và thành công tại Việt Nam ra sao, thì chúng ta thực sự đang đứng trước nguy cơ bị xâm lăng về mặt kinh tế. Và qua cuộc trò chuyện ngày hôm nay với giáo sư Backstage de Jos, chúng ta càng hiểu rằng là trong bối cảnh hội nhập thì vai trò của các CEO trong các doanh nghiệp thực sự lớn. Họ cần có kỹ năng và có tầm nhìn để dẫn dắt doanh nghiệp của mình, từ đó góp phần đẩy mạnh nền kinh tế nước nhà. Cảm ơn quý vị đã quan tâm theo dõi chương trình và hẹn gặp lại quý vị trong các chương trình sau.